In the UFC, it is not uncommon to see fighters switching weight classes in order to improve their chances of winning. For a recent example, just like at Joaquin Buckley, who has gone on a 6-fight win streak ever since going down from middleweight to welterweight and is now in title contention. However, what if instead of only allowing fighters to change weight classes, we allowed them to swap to any division, including, of course, women's strawweight, flyweight, bantamweight, and featherweight? Now before you click off the video, hear me out. Ever since Esparza vs. Namajunas 2, and honestly ever since Ronda Rousey got beaten to a pulp by Amanda Nunes, the popularity of women's MMA has declined considerably. Many fans of the sport are asking for the women's divisions to be done away with completely, citing numerous issues, ranging from boring bouts to a total absence of talent outside the top 3 of the division. And in the case of women's bantamweight, we just had Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena as a title fight, which highlights just how badly that weight class needs fresh talent. Or at least, that's what those bigoted chuds like Guru, Lucas Tracy, Left Lane, and Bedtime MMA say. As a fan of MMA Joey, Vivzy Pop, and ContraPoints, I find all of the comments about women's MMA to be extremely discriminatory. Just for the record, you incel chuds, female fighters are just as capable of being entertaining as male fighters, and if you don't think that's the case, I'm sorry, but you're a bigoted incel chud. But yeah, moving on. By allowing select fighters in the men's divisions to express their true gender identity and let their inner femininity out, we may be able to finally get those bigoted, misogynistic women haters to finally recognize that women's MMA is just as worth watching as men's MMA, if not more so. So today, I've chosen 4 currently male-identifying fighters who I think may wish to express themselves as women. And not only would these fighters likely relish the opportunity to show their true selves to the world, but they would also likely do very, very well in women's MMA. Now, you might be wondering where other obvious choices like Jon Jones, Jamal Hill, and Israel Adesanya are. I mean, Jon Jones wants to participate in women's MMA so badly, he's gone so far as to engage in an unsanctioned open-weight bout with his fiancée. And Israel Adesanya must have been taking estrogen, because what other explanation would there be for him growing a boob all of a sudden at age 30? However, the weight classes which would be most accommodating to these 3 ladies of color sadly do not exist in women's MMA, which I honestly think is a travesty. As a proud male feminist who makes sure to drink his soy milk and eat his bugs, I acknowledge that women come in all shapes, sizes, and body types, and we must therefore make the sport of MMA as accessible as we can to plus-sized women. And that is why I need you to share this video to pressure that Trump-loving bigot Dana White to make the inaugural women's heavyweight title fight between Amberlyn Reed and Lizzo. If men's MMA can have people of size, women's MMA should have it too. But anyways, I digress. Let's get started by going through what is currently feasible, beginning with women's strawweight, where I've chosen KKF, or Caitlin Cara-France, as our new potential women's MMA star. Caitlin, as a female fighter, would be a proud indigenous woman of color.
You are a flyweight, man. You are not supposed to have 13 first-round finishes. How are you knocking people out like that at this weight class?
It's because I'm Maori, bro. That's why.
Representing her ancestral Maori roots through rituals like the haka. KKF is also a proud member of the City Kickboxing team, where he trains with the aforementioned Israel Adesanya, a proud person of color. City Kickboxing as a whole has faced horrific homophobic discrimination from Manel Kape in the past. Although as of now, Kai fights as a flyweight, he is really quite small for 125 pounds. KKF is 5'4" or 163 centimeters tall, and isn't all that muscular either. I'm sure that if Kai were to find her true self as Caitlin, she'd be able to make 115 pounds. As of now, Cara-France is known for having some of the most knockout power in the flyweight division. If you do a biomechanical breakdown of where this punching force comes from, you'd find out that it's all generated from Cara-France's wide hips. This means that even if Caitlin were to go down to strawweight, she'd maintain her punching power. In fact, it may even be enhanced by the extra estrogen she'd be taking. Anyways, as for how Caitlin Cara-France matches up against the current champion, Zhang Weili, I'd favor Caitlin to win. While Weili is quite good on the feet, I think Caitlyn would be too fast and too powerful for her. Weili would have to resort to her wrestling to win, but even then, I don't see that going too well for Colby Covington's secret crush either. I don't know why. I genuinely can't find the explanation for it. But I foresee Caitlyn being far too physically strong for Weili. Too dense and too explosive with too much grip strength. I see Caitlyn finishing Weili by vicious, brain-concussing, CTE-inducing, orbital bone shattering, jaw-breaking KO in the first round. Moving on to the women's flyweight division, we have Muhammed Mokaev, who would likely change her name to, let's see, Hamida Mokaev. Okay, yeah, that sounds good, okay? Immediately, I know that all of you misogynistic, Islamophobic bigots must have thought, wait, isn't Mokaev like a devout Muslim? Why would he want to transition, let alone be allowed to transition? Well, unlike an open-minded, sophisticated, and worldly individual like myself, you uneducated incels likely aren't aware of the truth behind how Islam treats queer people. Okay, so ignoring that, did you know that in Iran, it's legal to be trans? Yes, and not only that, Iran is the world's second biggest hub for sex reassignment surgeries, right after Thailand. Now, of course, this is mainly because Iran is known to execute gay men, and the way they can avoid this is by becoming a trans woman, thereby making a relationship between two individuals with XY chromosomes not gay. But let's take our wins for trans rights where we can get them, right? Now, you might be wondering how I know that Mokaev wants this type of gender-affirming care. Well, all I have to say is that the proof is right in front of your eyes whenever Mokaev fights. Mokaev just cannot resist diving in between a man's legs. Hamida Mokaev's head is like a heat-seeking missile shooting straight for men's groins. The most prominent example of this is Mokaev's fight with Manel Kape, where Mokaev tried to pull down Kape's shorts to get at Manel's junk. And this wasn't a fight where, if Mokaev didn't perform and have a fun fight, she'd get cut from the UFC, which is, what ended up happening, right? Mokaev chose to go after Manel's crotch over staying on the UFC roster, which I think highlights just how strong Mokaev's urges are. Now, you might think that Mokaev is doing all of this because she is just that desperate and that thirsty for men, but I don't think she has to be. Just look at this comment that this guy with the username @AliTalks9755 made on the preview post for this video. And not only that, apparently 3 men decided to like this comment. So, I want to give @AliTalks9755 a shout out here for recognizing how trans women can be just as beautiful as women assigned female at birth. And if he comments anywhere on this channel, or on any channel for that matter, please congratulate him for his kindness and bravery. Anyways, getting back to the subject at hand, the other reason why Mokaev should transition is because it would be a quick path to getting back into the UFC. After Shevchenko proved via 5-round lay and pray that Alexa Grasso's first win was a fluke, the hype in women's flyweight, is pretty much dead. Shevchenko is getting up there in age, and the only somewhat interesting fight that's left for her is Manon Fiorot. Letting Hamida Mokaev come back not as a flyweight, but as a women's flyweight would be extremely beneficial to the UFC. Now, you might think that it'd be bizarre to have a devout Muslim woman as the champion of a combat sport, but this is something that's happened in the past. Just take a look at that strong, brave, empowered, strong, powerful, upstanding, and strong woman, Iman Khalif, who won gold at the Paris Olympics in boxing. She's a devout Muslim and a woman. Trust me. Okay, just trust me. She's a woman. Now, let's look at how Hamida Mokaev would match up against Valentina Shevchenko. Now, unpopular opinion, but I think Valentina would outstrike Mokaev on the feet. Even though Mokaev likely would have more punching power than the bullet on the feet, if you've seen Mokaev stand up, you'd know she isn't exactly the best there. However, Hamida's advantage would be in the grappling. I don't know why. I think that this may be the case, but I just can't help but imagine that Mokaev would be too strong and too physically domineering for Valentina. Just too powerful and overwhelming, and just Mokaev would likely just completely dominate Valentina in the grappling, using her strength and her grappling and her weight and all of that. I think Hamida would get outstruck for the first 2 rounds, but then would ragdoll Valentina, lay down some savage ground and pound that'll leave her looking like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and submit her with like a neck crank that will break her jaw. Okay, now that we've got Mokaev out of the way, let's move on to Maria Bautista for women's bantamweight. Now, you might be wondering why I think Maria is a closeted trans woman. Well, the reasoning is quite similar to Mokaev. Just like Mokaev, Bautista just can't help but dive for men's pants. But unlike Mokaev, who does it to just about every man like Lily Phillips does, Maria only has one guy on her mind. Yes, Maria is in love with Jose Aldo. Now, what other explanation would there be for Bautista hugging Aldo tightly in round 3, clinching up again with him as soon as they were separated by the referee, The reason why Maria was holding Aldo up against the cage, it wasn't to stall the fight, to a boring robbery decision because she was afraid of getting KO'd, but because Maria didn't want to hurt or be hurt by Aldo. And I mean, look at just how beautiful Maria is as a woman. So beautiful, so elegant, so strong. However, when it comes to whether she can compete against the best that women's bantamweight has to offer, I'm not exactly sure Maria would fare as well as Caitlin Cara-France or Hamida Mokaev. The current champion of women's bantamweight is Juliana Pena, but let's be honest with ourselves. Kayla Harrison becoming champion is basically a foregone conclusion. So I'm going to examine how Maria Bautista would do against Kayla. I know I said Cara-France and Mokaev would have a strength and physicality advantage over the current champions of their respective divisions, but I don't know if Maria would have the same edge over Kayla Harrison. Now, I can't tell you exactly why, but Kayla just seems so physically well-matched against Bautista. And honestly, every other men's bantamweight currently in the UFC as well. She just seems so physically strong, Just look at those arms, look at those biceps, right? And when you consider how Kayla Harrison was a gold medalist in judo at the Olympics, versus how Maria failed 10 takedown attempts against Jose Aldo and failed to get him down even once, I think we can give Kayla the grappling advantage here. And as for striking, you might think Maria would be better, but you'd be wrong. If you look at Bautista's record, you'll find that she got brutally flatlined on the feet by Trevin Jones. Immediately after chinning Maria, Trevin Jones went on a 4-fight losing streak and got cut from the UFC. If Maria is out there getting put out cold by the likes of Trevin Jones, can we consider her a threat to Kayla Harrison on the feet? I doubt it. Which is why, if this matchup were to happen, I'd pick Kayla Harrison to win by a hard-fought 48-47 grappling-based decision. I think Harrison's judo would be too much for Maria Bautista, and I think Kayla might even get a submission via arm triangle or arm bar. And finally, here at the very end, we have Shauna O'Malley for women's featherweight. O'Malley is already used to breaking patriarchal gender norms, up until recently having been in an open relationship with her wife. And judging by how she prefers to present herself, she is already showing signs of coming out of the closet. And as for why O'Malley should move up from bantamweight to featherweight, let me explain. Ever since Amanda Nunes retired, and frankly ever since Chris Cyborg left the UFC, women's featherweight has been a dead division. And the reason it's been dead is because the division has no stars. So what can we do to fix this? It's by using the biggest star in the UFC to revitalize it. Yes, indeed, O'Malley is undeniably, undisputedly, one of the biggest stars in the UFC. He's such a big star that everybody totally hasn't forgotten about him after losing to Merab, and he's absolutely the next Conor McGregor. O'Malley's fan base is organic, and he's never been forced on the fans by the UFC, And O'Malley's nickname is also incredibly original, and certainly was not given to him because 2 boxing greats had the same nickname, albeit with the hard R, of course. And O'Malley has such a firm, unshakable self-belief in her own stardom that for every walkout, she uses the song Superstar. This is similar to how trans women, when you talk to them, repeatedly assert that they are, indeed, real women.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
I can call the police if you'd like me to. You need to settle down.
You need to settle down and mind your business, okay?
Both of you guys?
Ma'am, once again, ma'am.
I said both of you.
No, you said sir. Once again, it's ma'am.
I actually said both of you guys. It was general.
Right beforehand, you said sir.
Sir? Okay.
Mother, get outside. If you want to call me sir again, I will show you a sir.
And that's because people who are truly confident in their identity will constantly remind others that they are, indeed, what they say they are. People who, in their heart of hearts, know that they are what they profess to be will get extremely defensive whenever they are questioned about it. Anyways, another reason why O'Malley should change divisions to women's featherweight is because Shauna will finally get the chance to put on the necessary muscle to defend against takedown. Shauna is already a fantastic striker, but right now she's just too physically weak to defend against heavy grappling offense. Now, I'm no Bradley Martin saying that having bigger muscles will always help you win fights, but there comes a point where lacking strength in grappling will just mean that you get outworked. And since this is the championship level of the UFC we're talking about, everybody's already very skilled. That means strength and muscle is going to give you the edge to do things like completing takedowns or finishing submissions. Anyone who's ever worked out knows that adding even 5 pounds of muscle can make you much, much stronger. And my guess is that the likes of Merab and Umar Nurmagomedov are vastly stronger than Sean O'Malley, even though they're in the same weight class. And it's because they're jacked. By moving up to women's featherweight, Shauna O'Malley could put on the muscle necessary to more effectively defend against grappling attacks. Now, as for how O'Malley would do in women's featherweight, let's bring Cris Cyborg back to the UFC and have her fight Shauna for the vacant belt. Now, as for how Shauna does, I think she brutally and viciously sleeps Cyborg with a head kick. Cyborg will be at a range and height disadvantage, and she won't be able to deal with O'Malley's movement. Heck, I can see O'Malley being able to out-grapple Cris Cyborg too, using that strength and size advantage that I can see her having for, some reason I just can't explain. I don't know where O'Malley would get that strength and size advantage over Cris Cyborg, but I can just see her having it, Anyways, that's the end of the video. Please like, share, and subscribe to fight against the hateful bigots that seem to dominate the MMA space. I've activated channel memberships on my page, so if you want to have access to the John Jones crybaby emoji, please join to support my work because a lot of my most popular content is already demonetized. Goodbye.